Today, we stand at the bloody crossroads of ancient China, 209 BCE, the final years of the Qin Dynasty, a regime built on conquest, fear, and unbreakable control. For a decade, Qin Shi Huang's empire had crushed warring states, standardized laws, currency, and writing, and forced millions into labor for the Great Wall roads and his mausoleum. But beneath the iron fist, anger simmered like a wildfire, waiting for a spark. That spark came from two ordinary men, Chen Sheng and Guang, low-ranking military officers ordered to lead 900 conscripts to a garrison in Yueyang. Caught in torrential rain, blocked by flooded roads, they faced a death sentence. Qin law demanded execution for arriving late, no exceptions. Faced with certain death, they made a choice that would shake an empire. They revolted. What began as a desperate act of survival exploded into the first mass peasant uprising in Chinese history, sweeping across central China in weeks, seizing cities, rallying tens of thousands, and declaring a new kingdom called Jiangchu. For a moment, it seemed the Qin dynasty would fall. Yet, just 6 months after it began, the rebellion was shattered. Chen Sheng was assassinated by his own guard, Guang was killed by his subordinate, and their armies were scattered or slaughtered. The question that haunts historians to this day is simple. Why did such a powerful, popular uprising fail so quickly? This is not a story of bad luck or superior Qin arms alone. It is a story of fatal human flaws, catastrophic strategy, internal betrayal, and the cruel reality that a revolution built on anger without structure cannot survive against the disciplined, ruthless state. Let us peel back the layers of this epic tragedy piece by piece, with strict historical accuracy, no myths, no exaggeration, only the hard truth of why Chen Sheng and Guang's revolution collapsed. First, we must understand the foundation of the uprising. It was a spontaneous explosion of rage, not a planned revolution. Chen Sheng and Guang were not trained generals, not political strategists, not leaders with a blueprint for governance. They were commoners thrust into power by circumstance. Their rallying cry, "Our princes and nobles, born by nature," resonated with every oppressed peasant, every enslaved laborer, every disgraced former noble of the 6 conquered states. Tens of thousands flocked to their banner, but these recruits were untrained, unarmed, and disorganized. They carried farm tools, wooden spears, and broken bronze weapons, facing the Qin army, one of the most professional, well-equipped, and battle-hardened fighting forces the ancient world had ever seen. The Qin military had perfected mass infantry tactics, crossbow units, cavalry charges, and siege warfare after centuries of war. The rebels had numbers, but numbers mean nothing without discipline, command structure, and supply lines. This was the first critical weakness. The uprising was a mob, not an army. Chen Sheng tried to impose order, appointing generals, and seizing territory, but he had no system to train troops, manage logistics, or enforce loyalty. His forces swelled to hundreds of thousands, but most were useless in coordinated combat. When the Qin counter-attacked, the rebel lines broke like dry straw. The second and most deadly cause of failure was internal division and power betrayal. Revolutions devour their own, and this one was no exception. From the moment Chen Sheng declared himself king of Jiangchu, jealousy and ambition tore the rebellion apart. He promoted unqualified followers, ignored loyal advisors, and grew arrogant as victories mounted. Guang, his closest ally and co-leader, was given command of a major army to attack the Qin stronghold of Xinjiang. But Guang was a cautious leader, unwilling to rush a suicidal siege. His subordinate, Tian Kang, craved power and falsely accused Guang of incompetence and conspiracy. Tian Kang murdered Guang, seized command, and sent his head to Chen Sheng. Shockingly, Chen Sheng approved the killing and rewarded Tian Kang. This act sent a catastrophic message to every rebel leader: loyalty meant nothing, and murder could earn you power. Overnight, the rebellion fractured. Dozens of rebel generals stopped taking orders from Chen Sheng, declared themselves independent kings in the territories they captured, and refused to send troops to support the main rebel army. They fought each other for land and treasure, instead of uniting against the Qin. Chen Sheng's kingdom became a patchwork of warlords, not a unified force. He lost control of his own movement, isolated in his capital city, surrounded by rivals who once called him leader. This internal collapse was far more destructive than any Qin attack. The rebels were defeated by their own greed and betrayal before the Qin army ever delivered the final blow. Third, the rebellion suffered from catastrophic strategic mistakes that left it vulnerable to annihilation. Chen Sheng's biggest error was spreading his forces too thin. Instead of consolidating control over central China, building a secure base, training his army, and stockpiling weapons and food. He ordered multiple armies to march in all directions. One force was sent west to attack the Qin heartland near Xianyang, another north to seize border regions, a third south to conquer former Chu lands, and a fourth to hold captured cities. This split his already untrained army into small isolated groups, each too weak to defend itself or win a decisive battle. The Western rebel army, led by Zhou Wen, actually advanced to the gates of Xianyang, one of the most shocking moments of the uprising. But Zhou Wen's troops were exhausted, undersupplied, and unsupported by other rebel forces. The Qin government, initially caught off guard, reacted with brutal efficiency. The Emperor Qin Shi and the eunuch Zhao Gao ordered General Zheng Han to lead a counterattack. Zheng Han did something brilliant and ruthless. He released 700,000 convicts and laborers from the Qin mausoleum, armed them, and turned them into a massive emergency army. These men were desperate to earn freedom, and they fought with ferocity. Zheng Han's army was disciplined, led by professional Qin officers, and perfectly suited to crush the disorganized rebels. He destroyed Zhou Wen's army outside Xianyang, killing Zhou Wen in battle. Then, Zheng Han turned his army east, destroying one rebel faction after another, recapturing cities and beheading rebel leaders without mercy. Chen Sheng had no strategy to stop him, no unified defense, no reserve army, no plan to retreat and regroup. Every rebel defeat became a rout, and every rout turned into a massacre. Fourth, the rebellion lacked legitimacy and long-term popular support beyond initial anger. Chen Sheng claimed to restore the Chu state, one of the Qin's greatest conquered enemies, but he was not a member of the Chu royal family. He was a commoner king, and many former Chu nobles and educated elites refused to support him. These elites had the knowledge, wealth, and social status to organize a real resistance, but they saw Chen Sheng as an upstart, not a legitimate ruler. They waited for a royal descendant to lead the rebellion, and they never fully committed their resources to Chen Sheng's cause. Without elite support, the rebellion could not build a functional government, collect taxes, or maintain order in the territories it controlled. Peasants joined the uprising to escape Qin oppression, but when rebel armies looted, villages killed civilians and failed to protect them from Qin, retaliation support faded. The people who started the revolution soon became its victims, as war and chaos destroyed their homes and livelihoods. The uprising was a reaction against tyranny, but it offered no positive vision for the future, no laws, no stability, no hope, beyond overthrowing the Qin. A revolution that only destroys cannot sustain itself. It must also build, and Chen Sheng and Guang never learned this lesson. Finally, the Qin dynasty's ruthless efficiency and survival instinct cannot be overlooked. Even in its final years, the Qin state machinery was still functional. The legal system, military command structure, and resource allocation system allowed the Qin to mobilize massive force in weeks. Qin Shi was a weak, cruel ruler, but Zhao Gao and Zheng Han were cold, calculating strategists who understood how to crush a rebellion. They used divide-and-conquer tactics, bribing rebel leaders, spreading rumors, and exploiting internal rifts. They showed no mercy to surrendering rebels, executing entire garrisons to terrorize others. The Qin's willingness to use unrestrained violence shocked the rebels, who had never faced such systematic brutality. Chen Sheng's last days were a nightmare. His armies were destroyed, his allies were dead or betrayed him, and his people fled. He was forced to retreat from his capital, running for his life with a small group of guards. In the end, he was killed by Zhuangjia, one of his own personal guards, who hoped to earn a reward from the Qin. His head was sent to Xianyang as a trophy. Guang was dead, his generals were dead, his kingdom was gone. The first great peasant uprising in Chinese history was over-extinguished in a storm of blood and betrayal. But the legacy of Chen Sheng and Guang did not die with them. Their rebellion proved that the Qin dynasty was not unbeatable, that the people could rise up against tyranny. It inspired countless other rebels, including Liu Bang and Xiang Yu, who would later overthrow the Qin and found the Han dynasty. Their story is a tragic lesson for all revolutions. Anger is a powerful fuel, but it is not enough. A successful revolution needs discipline, unity, strategy, legitimacy, and a vision for the future. Without these, even the largest, most popular uprising will collapse under its own weight. Chen Sheng and Guang were heroes of the people, brave and defiant, but they were not leaders built to win a war against an empire. Their failure is not a sign of their weakness, but a reminder of how hard it is to break a tyrannical state, and how easily human flaws can destroy even the most just causes. If you enjoyed this journey into ancient China, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more epic history. See you next time.